Time for our monthly look at the state of the rural real estate market. This is always a keenly listened to slot on the country. Here's the question, Peter Newbold, GM of PGG Wrightson Real Estate. Is the rural market as hot as the residential market?
Good question, Jamie. Look, it's not as hot, but there's renewed interest. It's probably the best we've seen it for a number of years. And I think the critical piece is there's buyers out there. Now, there's people who are wanting properties in all the sectors. And the other thing that would be fair to say is there's probably the first time in, I think, a number of years, we're just seeing a little bit of upward, what would you call it? Values are just starting to sort of turn. So I think that's a positive piece as well.
Yet there's subdued, and that's probably an understatement, subdued interest in dairy properties, and yet this week more good news for dairy farming incomes. I put it to you, some of these properties, if you were game enough and weren't afraid of David Parker, would be really good buying on a yield basis. And I'm talking the dairy properties here.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Jamie. The only thing I would say is that we're starting to see a little bit of movement in that sort of, let's call it bottom end or lower value, and also at the top end a little bit more interest. So for me, I think we'll see a gradual improvement in that, and I think we'll see more demand as time moves on, and I think it will slowly keep up with or get to where sheep and beef are at the moment, where there's huge demand.
Well, it's interesting that, because the returns for dairy farming, if we're looking at the livestock industry, the returns for dairy farming are much better now, at the moment, should I say, than they are for sheep and beef.
Yeah, you're right. I think also you've got to add into the sheep and beef piece is that sort of large, grazing arable where you've got a lot of non-traditional purchasers starting to get involved in that area where they're wanting to drop a few $1 million as an investment, maybe lease it back to farmers or whatever. So we're seeing sort of a couple of plays going on there. But yeah, as far as the return goes, dairy is really strong, but there's just general interest in that whole, grazing arable and sheep and beef, especially in the capacity area, where you've got high capacity.
How's my mate Stan Robb getting on in the Bay of Plenty, sourcing kiwi fruit farms to sell? Last time I was chatting to him, he said he could sell a truckload of them if he could get a listing.
Well, I think if you looked at the moment, he's probably got 100 on the waiting list. We're just starting to see a little bit of activity in that space, but I think it's going to be tight. The returns are too good, and people are holding on to them. So, yeah, a lot of demand in that kiwi fruit wider horticultural sector.
Just on the subject of residential property prices in provincial New Zealand, I was talking to a friend of mine this morning in West Otago who said the likes of property prices in places like Tapanui have doubled in the last 3 or 4 years. It's interesting. Are you seeing that right around the country?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. And when you dig down into the statistics, it shows you that there's more increase in values in those provincial areas than the likes of Auckland or those larger metropolitans. And I think it comes back to value. You can buy, good properties in provincial New Zealand at what I would say a good price. The values are on the increase, and New Zealanders want to get out into where there's more space. And the other thing what I think is interesting, a lot of people want to be involved in nice communities, and we know in rural you can't get a better place to live.
I absolutely agree with you. One to finish on, and that is our property of the week. I see Peter Wiley, a guy in the Central North Island, selling this one. This one's just around the Taumarunui area. It's a beautiful, extensive property. You can have a look at it on our website, thecountry.co.nz. Click on rural properties. Sheep and beef property with lots of hunting options. But Pete, I love the last wee bit on the blurb about it. Please bring your own quad bike to the open days. Don't you just love that?
Yeah, look, that's still all Pete. And I think if you look at that property, it's got everything. And I think it's one thing we've talked about often. People are after properties that have got capacity and then, lots of different opportunities. So it's just one of those properties that doesn't come along very often. It's just a beauty.
Yep, go and have a look at our property of the week. Click on rural properties on thecountry.co.nz. Peter Newbold will catch you again next month. By the way, enjoy your day. I think you're in Omarama and Tekapo today for lamb sales.
Yeah, look, it's a wonderful part of the country. It was probably 3 degrees this morning when we got up, and it's probably going to turn out to be a high 20s. So great events to go to, and hopefully we get good values for the stock.
Well, I hope so. Thanks for your time. We'll catch you next month.
Cheers, Jamie.